is the side of Lilith that annoys me because it's the one that everybody loves, is the sexual side. Maybe it's because I'm a Capricorn. I'm just like, ugh, does it have to always be about sex? But actually,
there she is. Woohoo!
hiya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you. First of all, I want to thank you for making the time to do this because I know you're busy, and with a little kid, I can only imagine how much work there is to be done. But I wanted you today here because Black Moon Lilith is something that I'm exploring, and I know that you're really an expert. So for everybody who doesn't follow Stephanie, please check her account and her YouTube channel. She has a great podcast about a bunch of synastries and so many interesting things. She is giving lecture on Black Moon Lilith for London School of Astrology, which makes her an expert on it, in my opinion. So,
expert is a word that always makes me shudder, because I don't feel like I'm an expert in anything, especially when it comes to astrology. I just feel like I'm an eternal student. I feel like calling myself an expert is, I don't know, it feels rude, cheeky. How can anyone think they're an expert on this subject?
So the podcast name is Stellium Astrology. You can find her on YouTube. Every time I would drive somewhere and listen to Stephanie, see the speak between people and stuff. And the reason why I feel that this topic is so good now, because Black Moon Lilith is actually conjuncting Venus at the moment. But before we start with that, tell us more, what is Black Moon Lilith and what does it represent in astrology?
Okay, so Black Moon Lilith is a calculated point. It's a little bit like the nodes in astrology. They don't actually exist. It's kind of a pathway. So it's calculated by looking at if you put the Earth in the center and then you look at the moon's orbit around the Earth, then there are points where the moon's orbit are closer and farther away, being the apogee and the perigee. But between the lunar apogee and the Earth, there is a point, a central point. You have to put a compass point on there and then draw a circle connecting the Earth and the lunar apogee being the farthest point. And that point where the compass goes into that's the lunar void, and that is Black Moon Lilith. So it's almost like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with sacred geometry, but one of the images that I always think about is the Vesica Pisces. Because to get the Vesica Pisces, you have to draw a circle, and then you have to get the compass point on the edge of the circle and the pencil at the center of the other circle to draw the next circle. Exactly the same size circles, and it creates this sacred image. And funnily enough, it's a feminine image, almost like if you walked into a church door and you see how the top of the door is sort of like pointed and comes down. It's the Vesica Pisces, or half of the Vesica Pisces, and it's a very feminine matriarchal symbol at the front of a church.
It's a topic for another podcast.
Yeah. The point of the lunar void is the empty focus. Essentially, this is where we try and figure out what exactly it means. If you think about the Earth as being Saturn and being kind of essence and being present, then the lunar void is this missing piece. It's kind of like an emptiness. It's almost like a little black hole. It's very evasive. We can't quite put our finger on it. And I think this is why so many people are fascinated with Lilith, with Black Moon Lilith, because she is hard to understand. Very hard to understand.
Amazing. And mythology is also interesting, right?
Yes, because if you're looking at the mythology of it, Black Moon Lilith, and just before we go on to mythology, I just want people to know that there's a mean calculated point and a true point. So you've got, just like the lunar node, you've got the mean point, which is the average, because the apogee bounces around a lot because the lunar orbit is not perfect. The true point really can be very far away from the mean calculated point, and it depends on who you are and what you like, your preference completely as an astrologer, whether you want to go for true or mean. But there is this, I think it's Kelly Hunter came up with it, the Lilith corridor, where you can look at the true Lilith placement in the chart and also the mean, and whatever space is in between that, you can call that your Lilith corridor. So for example, I have mean Lilith at 22 Capricorn and I have true Lilith at 4 Capricorn. So whatever you have between those points, quite a big space for my true and my mean. You've got, you could have planets. It still could be empty, but it's worth taking a look at that area of your chart. I'm sure it's Kelly Hunter, and she's written a book on Lilith. Into the mythology of it, Lilith is the first lady of the Garden of Eden. She's around before Eve. God decided to create Adam and Lilith out of the earth, so they were both made from the same force, which is nature. And Lilith, I think it was said that you had to face your creative force when you were copulating, which meant that Lilith would have to face down, and Adam always insisted that he wanted to be on top. And she didn't like that because it was like degrading to her. So she kicked back against that and said that she didn't want to do it and tried to fight for her right to be an equal, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. She got a bit fed up with being oppressed in this way, so she decided to speak the name of God, which is forbidden in the Garden of Eden. So she said, Yod Hey Vau Hey. Anybody who's got a set of tarot cards, you can see it written all over the tarot. But she actually spoke the name of God and was immediately banished. But what happened is that when she said God's name, she became all powerful. She was able to take some of the power. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever seen that film, Drop Dead Fred with Rick Mayall years ago. It's an English film. It had Phoebe Cates in it and Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a really, really old film with an English comedian who's wonderful. He's an imaginary friend, but in order for her to grow up and be a confident, mentally well-adjusted adult, she had to face the fear of her mother and speaking out, saying, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And it's almost by acknowledging and saying the name of the thing that scares you or the thing that has got power over you. You possess the power of that thing yourself. So that's what Lilith did. She got chucked out. Then God said, well, you can come back if you want to, but you have to apologise. He sent some angels out. And she said, no, thank you. I'm not coming back there. And she basically got left out of the Garden of Eden forever. And she was demoted to a demon. And it depends on who tells the story of Lilith. If it's a patriarchal story, you hear all sorts of horrific things about her. And if it's matriarchal, you hear all these wonderful feminist stories about how she's so empowering.
It's prominent in many charts of many feminist activists, right?
You know, it's really, really, really prominent, yes, in that. And also in the suffragette movement, I really got obsessed with researching. Emmeline Pankhurst, Lilith is extremely well placed in her chart. And it's really interesting because when she was growing up, I think I've got her chart here somewhere. I know I was like clicking around, looking at charts earlier.
So what does a good placement mean for Lilith?
Well, it can mean anything, actually. When Lilith is really prominent, usually she's either rising, she can be on the midheaven, or she's aspecting a lot of planets. She could be in conjunction with the moon, she could be in conjunction with the sun. But it's usually that she's making some kind of aspect. And remember that we are talking here about a hypothetical point. So it could be the main or the true point. So it can be very loosely interpreted in that respect.
I always use the true notes for everything. I have exact conjunction with Venus in Cancer in the 10th house.
With Lilith.
It's a half degree.
So that's definitely Lilith.
True.
Half a degree with your Venus in the 10th house.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's to me is really quite a big deal because she's really elevated as well. It's like she's really high up and maybe this has been an area of fascination for you.
I've always felt her presence, let's say.
Yeah.
When I started reading about it.
There's lots of ways she can express herself. And there's ways that I find annoy me because people jump onto certain bandwagons. But unfortunately, there's truth in that as well. So the thing that I find interesting is as soon as you find out that you have some kind of prominent placement of Lilith, suddenly you become obsessed. Everybody wants to know, what does that mean? What does that mean? And you look into Lilith a little bit and there's this whole backstory of the shadow feminine. So it's like there has to be this acknowledgement in your relationships where you have to address the shadow feminine.
I just feel that this is just the way I interpret my Lilith. It's only my opinion, but it sits in the 10th house. And I know that I always had some kind of issues with older men. I just couldn't. The 10th house is Saturn house. It is about an authority. Like a man in authority and everything.
I have issues with authority figures as well. Like, do you find it difficult? Rule makers, it's not that you're trying to push back against it. It's just that there's a sense of seeing through a type of hypocrisy that comes with it, the hierarchy. If it's not authentic, if it's not genuine, you can almost see that there's holes in the system.
I was never one of those people who would, suck up. Oh my God, oh look, the director is coming or the manager is coming. Let's know. I was like, no, so they're also human. Like I always had them like as close.
Yeah. See, somebody with Lilith in Capricorn, I was talking to somebody about this. It's not that we are trying to rebel against it. It's just that we won't elevate them because they are not better than anybody. It doesn't matter whether you've studied for years and years and years and you're a doctor at the top of your field or even a politician or the Prime Minister. We are all just people. At the end of the day, we all go home, we get undressed, we'll sit on the bog, we'll brush our teeth if we're hygienic people, and then we go to sleep and we wake up and we do it all over again. But, there's this illusion of hierarchy. When Lilith is in like the 10th house or Capricorn, we can see right through it. And it can make it very difficult for us to work for other people. It can make us much more entrepreneurial. And it's not about having the fearlessness to take risks and want to do things our way because it's an adventure. It's more because we just find it very hard to actually do it other people's way.
I agree. It's always nice to talk about it to see how it manifests in other lives. But that's how I did it every time in my life. Like, oh yeah, okay. Like, okay, he's a manager, so
I think her being in conjunction with your Lilith as well would make not necessarily a troublemaker, because obviously Venus is quite happy to cooperate. It's just that, like you said, you don't really see people as above you or below. We're all just people. So yeah, Lilith is one of the things that one of the terms I use is one of the a kind of, not a pet name, but a kind of cute sort of thing that one of my exes used to say about me. He always used to say I was a very naughty horse, because no matter what I would do, no matter what he would ask me to do, I would not do it. And I feel like it's very strong Lilith energy. It's like naughty horse energy. He'd say to me, like, I could be getting up to make a cup of tea, but if he asked me to do it, I would be like, no, just doing it. Yeah, that I don't. It's interesting. Do it. Yes, it's like there's this kind of you'll do it because you want to, but not because you've been asked. And I feel like that's quite strong naughty horse energy. And, you know, whenever I say this to people with a strong Lilith, they completely understand the naughty horse thing. My ex was a Pisces. He had a lot of stuff in Pisces. And in fact, he had a Sun Lilith conjunction. So he really was able to tune into that. But it was just quite funny how he kind of coined that term for me.
Is it possible to give a brief description of what Lilith represents in the various houses and its signs?
Wow, that's the big question. Yes, but like I said, with Lilith, she is quite a wide, because you've got the mean and the true. It's, I think, sometimes not as easy to pinpoint her in signs and houses, because you could have true Lilith in one sign and mean Lilith in another. So the corridor's much more interesting to look at.
You look at both things when you look at Lilith in a chart.
I'm one of those annoying people that looks at multiple different, like, sort of, I will look at the Lilith corridor. I don't always look at true Lilith. I do, if I'm doing a specific Lilith reading, then I would definitely look at both, because I think that there's something to be said about both. I wouldn't do it with Chiron. I wouldn't do it with the nodes. I stick to the mean calculations with the nodes and with Chiron. But I do like to look at Lilith as a kind of a mean and a true position. I think that it's a kind of, like she says, a corridor, and it's really interesting because whatever you've got within that corridor, you might not have anything in there at all. It could just be your Lilith area, but then you might have planets that happen to be square that particular part of your chart, and it will be feeding in some way. There definitely seems to be a sense of influence when Lilith is involved in that respect. I do have some notes somewhere of what she means in each of the signs, because it's a little bit cookbook. I'll see if I can find my notes.
If you just maybe
can do that.
A word or two, because I know it's a lot of information. Talk about, we're looking for your notes, this conjunction that is happening right now with Venus retrograde. How is it specific for the transit? How does this transit of Lilith affect people?
Well, I actually made a video on my YouTube channel, which I can share at some point. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's basically like Lilith's leading role. I think that's what I called it. And really, she's so instrumental to this period, because when I was looking at what was going on, and I could see that, what was it? Venus goes retrograde at 28 Leo, and then she retrogrades right back to 12.
Yes.
And before she gets there, she makes a conjunction with Mercury and Lilith, who are in conjunction at about 20.
Jupiter.
So she squares Jupiter, but she's also square Uranus at the point she makes a conjunction with Mercury. All I could see was that story of the Garden of Eden. And I could see that she gets to a point where she has to make a choice about whether she should stay or whether she should go. And it doesn't have to be super drastic. It doesn't have to be like throwing the baby out with the bathwater as far as the expression goes. But there's a real sense that we have a realization during this period. And during this time, we have to figure out, you know, because Venus is all about how we feel valued. And, you know, I view Mars and Venus as the priority planets, because what we put our energy into and what we value are really what we prioritize. So it's really about figuring out where on our own personal chain of command certain activities or people are. And with Venus being a relationship planet, Venus retrograde is a good time to have a relationship review.
Yes,
every aspect. But when it comes to Lilith being involved, Lilith can represent a number of things. It can represent being in a situation where the inequality is so great that there has to be some kind of action. It's almost like an inner activist is woken up. It could be that there's some kind of temptation there that you know is going to get you thrown out, but it's too fascinating for you. Usually, I can see an obsession with Lilith. And in previous consultation with somebody that I know, I could see that they were having some pretty major stuff going on, and I could see Lilith was very, very instrumental. And not long after the consultation, they left their partner of 10 years and immediately got involved in a romance with this new woman who was, to put it politely, batshit crazy. It was very, very like toxic. And it seemed like there was this kind of fascination and obsession that kept pulling him in and out. And it was lots of red flags.
You could say that even though this is like a general and we don't want to presume anything or assume anything, as I always say as an astrologer, please do not assume anything. But with the Lilith now and Venus retrograde and till Leo, it's about being, center of attention and all about that. People might put attention on themselves and their needs, even if they are going the wrong way. And I said, with a touch of Uranus, as you said, when you want to break free and do something different, and usually, even if it's not good for you at the end.
It's about really doing what serves you. And it's about addressing some kind of balance. Client like I had before was a male client, and the woman that they were attracted to was really embodying this like naughty horse energy. In this current Venus retrograde, it can be about temptation. It can be about obsession. It can be about wanting to do things that serve self-serving activities, but it can also be about wanting to fight for equality, where with Venus retrograde, whenever she turns retrograde, she's that little bit closer to us, isn't she? So we feel the heat, we feel her presence, and the issues that arise are often, well, hang on a second, this isn't very fair. How did it get to this point without addressing it? But Lilith is standing next to her and saying, you know what, you don't have to put up with this, there's another way of doing this. And she's really, really makes walking that path on your own seem very, very enticing. You might be somebody who's like a serial monogamist who loves to be in a relationship, who is frightened of that single life, but Lilith makes it look really tempting. The other thing that can happen with Lilith, which is the side of Lilith that annoys me because it's the one that everybody loves, is the sexual side. Maybe it's because I'm a Capricorn. I'm just like, ugh, does it have to always be about sex? But actually,
I don't see it that way. Yeah, I don't see it.
I don't either. But there is that element. It does awaken, and there can be like somebody like Mick Jagger who's got I think it's a Leo stellium, and he's got Lilith in conjunction with Leo in that stellium, all running down on the IC, I think, in his chart. So really, really at the core, the essence of who he is. This shamanic sexual energy that comes up with every performance. The man is 80 years old. He's still got it. There's this undeniable magnetism that Lilith brings into a situation as well. So what she draws your attention to, because she doesn't have to embody anybody or be some presence. It can be like a realization that you have, but she awakens you to something that is so appealing that it can be hard to ignore it once you've realized it's a potential.
It can go, as I understand, both ways. One way, you're going to do something stupid, let's say, and then sober up in September when everything goes direct again, or you can actually free yourself from something that was suffocating you and you didn't feel as you were valued, let's say.
And obviously, we've got Venus retrograde, but then during that time, we've got Mercury turning retrograde as well. So we've got a lot of retrograde stuff. And then there's other planets retrograde.
Everything is going to be retrograde except Mars in one point.
It's a time of review. Mars is actually the only one that isn't retrograde. So it might feel like a good time to take action. But when everything is under review like this, it really is a time to speculate and to think about how you want to go about things, especially when it comes to Venus being retrograde. The nodes have just shifted into Mars-Venus signs of Aries and Libra from Mars-Venus signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So we've been dealing with Mars-Venus stuff already, and now we're dealing with much more obvious Mars-Venus stuff with like the Aries, Libra, I versus us type relationshipy individual stuff.
Many celebrities are breaking up. Everybody else is also probably breaking up. We just don't know. But many celebrities are breaking up. And I feel that this is also part of it, going towards North Node in Aries and this Lilith and Venus conjunction and being all these things retrograde. It's all connected.
I agree. And I think Lilith is the key player here because she's in a fire sign. So she is communicating with the Aries side of that in a very flowing and easy way. Sometimes you can look at that as the lazy relationship, the situationship, and suddenly go, well, hey, hang on a sec. I prefer to be on my own. There's this real pull to actually doing it your own way. Quality is so highlighted right now because Venus retrograde, whenever that comes up, it's always about looking at unfairness and addressing the balance. Lilith being there, who is not even trying, she's just saying, hang on a second, I'm pretty sure I was created of the same stuff as Adam. How come I'm being treated differently? And she's just not going to be quiet about it.
And Leo is bold.
Yeah.
Right? Leo is bold and courageous and following what the heart desires.
Wears their heart on their sleeve. They're very genuine and they're very much what you see is what you get. And at the moment, you are starting to get people say, well, this is, I see it. I see it clearly. And wearing their heart on their sleeve and saying, I don't think that this is for me, or I do think this is for me, but there have to be changes. Or addressing issues of potentially addiction, or I know quite a few people that whenever Lilith turns up, there is drink and drugs become the third person, the third wheel, but there can be triangles, love triangles when it comes to Lilith as well. There's this sort of this strange, that empty focus that you want to fill. I was literally speaking to somebody today who I think might actually be on the video at the moment. She was saying that somebody's come to stay with her for a moment and it's changed the whole dynamic of her home. And it's almost like you could imagine that that person turning up could actually have filled that empty void. So suddenly you've got something to look at. But when they're gone, the empty void is still there. And that's when you have to face the truth, or, you know, the silence that speaks. There's something about switching off all devices, switching off the telly and sitting there and letting that internal chatter have somewhere to go so you can pay attention to what the noise actually is and whether or not it's something you need to pay attention to. I know so many people that don't like switching off early and sitting in silence because they find it just unnerving.
As you're saying here, that's an example. She says, I decided that it was time for my husband and I to go to marriage counseling. My sun, Uranus and Venus conjunction in Leo. Absolutely. I mean, Lilith is also there in this conjunction. I mean, transiting over that. So that's a good way to do it. Like counseling is helpful.
I would say it's funny because, you know, sun, Uranus and Venus conjunction, is that your natal placement? Because it's funny, isn't it, that sometimes you can have like the sun, Uranus and Venus. It'd be interesting to know who played the role of the sun in that situation, who was playing the role of Uranus and who was playing the role of Venus there. It's interesting what can trigger that to come up. But there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that there is something missing sometimes.
Now that you mentioned the relationships and marriage counseling, I know you do Synastry. So what is the position of Black Moon Lilith? What are the aspects in a Synastry that you would consider like a red flag or that are actually good?
I was thinking about this earlier and I was thinking that Lilith can be a good thing because it can teach other people how to be more bold and how to be more real. So in a relationship, Lilith can present in different ways, but I think that anything can be read as positive or negative, or you can say that something is, as I like to say, productive or counterproductive in relationship. I think if Lilith makes direct contact with something in the other person's chart, it's definitely something you have to work through together, and it depends on the other aspect and the current transits that you're experiencing. Just for example, that person that was going through that kind of obsessional thing with that relationship where Lilith was approaching, they were also undergoing a Pluto transit, but I could see that it was going to be a third person getting involved. I knew that that was coming. I'm not saying that every time it's going to be like that, but say you have like Lilith in conjunction with your Mars, for example, that can really be an almost impossible, like you have to scratch that itch. You know, somebody is triggering, and like I said, it's annoying, but it's true. There is like a strong sexual magnetism that comes with Lilith as well.
Yeah, I think it's a strong chemistry.
Yeah.
If they're touching,
I can see that that would be a strong attraction. Occasionally there are people that do have like Lilith in conjunction with Lilith. I've seen that as well, where people have actually got literally a Lilith conjunction. That feels almost like a kind of a real fated thing. And there seems to be like a needing to fight some kind of injustice together, like you're both fighting some kind of cause in some way or another together. It can be difficult because Lilith in conjunction with the sun, if you've got it natally, it can be quite hard to grasp the identity, and it can lead you to feeling like you don't really know yourself. So therefore in a relationship you take on a lot of the other person's qualities because your own identity is not so strong. There are placements with Lilith, if you think of her as a void, there can be like places where you can't quite understand that aspect of your own chart. So when it comes to relationships, you are searching for that in somebody else or trying to identify that in someone else. This is why it makes her so difficult. With relationships, Lilith really does feel like some kind of temptation sometimes. And in the right situation, she can really help you to face some of the darker aspects of yourself, some of the more shadow aspects of your psyche. But the difficulty is that usually that comes with a lot of work that in a relationship can seem like toxic in some way.
There's no perfect relationships. When you have a passionate relationship, it can be very dynamic in many, many ways, right?
Yes, it's true. And we are in relationships at certain times in our life through no accident. I don't think there is any accident. I think the people that we decide to invest ourselves into, they're in our lives for a reason, and we have stuff to learn with them. And if we don't walk away from lessons once they're learned, and we're there to learn more, I just think that there's lots to be learned from other people. My counselling studies teacher, she said relationships are the vehicle of change. And if you think about it, there is no way that we can't cruise through life without bumping into something and that causing us to address certain issues in our life. And when it comes to people, there are relationships that are not great. There are some relationships where you find yourself being with people who bring out the worst in you. But what are they doing by bringing that out? They are literally asking you to take a look and to work on it. Some, the relationships that are like lifelong, and then you've got seasonal relationships, people that come into our life for a short period and go. Every single one of them has some kind of lasting impact. Even if we forget about that person down the line, they steered us onto some kind of pathway.
It's an energy exchange. If we are all made of stardust, then you got a little bit of stardust from other
like
the person dusted you. So you have a part of it with you. That's how. Just another question I have. Many people, when they talk about Lilith, they talk about children and not able to have children. And is this really that important in a chart? Is it an indicator of maybe having issues with conceiving or not wanting to have kids? Or
I know I saw some classes. Anybody who's interested in learning more about Lilith, by the way, I saw Dick van der Mark. I think he's from the Netherlands and he's done a lot of work on Lilith, really interesting stuff. And he talks about these kind of issues with Lilith. I think that there must be something to it. When I speak to clients, I don't necessarily talk about fertility because most of my clients come to me for different things.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are these issues. Sometimes people would say Lilith in conjunction with the moon, it can present as that there is this void that is not fulfilled. And if you think of that in the respect of becoming the mother, in the many expressions that the moon can be, there is a chance that that could be a thing. But also you could look at that as having a very complicated relationship with food. I've seen people with Lilith on the ascendant or Lilith with their moon, and they literally do have some kind of either body dysmorphia or eating disorders. There are many expressions if you have got Lilith in conjunction with your moon and you would like to have a child. I'm not saying it's never ever going to happen, but there have been cases where some people do have that. It's not the definitive no, but Lilith has got an association with children because one of her punishments for leaving the Garden of Eden was that God told her she had to sacrifice 100 of her children every single day. So she couldn't have 100 babies every single day, but she would go through that process of labouring and losing. So she's associated with stillbirths and infant loss. And it was quite scary when I was pregnant and I was building the LSA Lilith course for the China school, and it worried me that I was doing this research while I was pregnant. I think the first time I got into Lilith, I was living on my own. I'd moved out and lived on my own, and she's also known as the succubus. The demon visits men at night and copulates them while they're sleeping. And I was living in a building that was attached to a converted church. Like it was the church. I had a stained glass window in my bedroom. I was kind of like in this weird, lovely little place. And I was on my own. And sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be petrified because it's scary researching the demonic aspects of Lilith. But you have to remember that there is that patriarchal influence over her interpretation and the associations.
Did she marry Lucifer at the end?
I don't know about that far down. I have no idea. Lucifer, my knowledge, is literally Venus because he's the morning star, isn't he? And Lucifer is I am the light. And there is a connection with Venus as well. So it would be interesting if that were true because there's a sense of like that Venus being that female archetype and one of the few female presences in our solar system and the mythology that goes with it as far as astrologers are concerned. You're not taking into consideration asteroids and things like that. So that would be one to explore. But yes, I think that there are challenges with fertility and Lilith, but I think that there are many challenges that present throughout the chart depending on the aspects. She was quite late in her pregnancy and she had a miscarriage.
They had 2 kids already, and then the 3rd kid, something happened.
I think she has Lilith on her descendant. I can't remember what it was, but it's a really interesting chart and I did go into it for the LSA. And also Kim Kardashian had problems with her children, which is why she became a surrogate. I think she has got Lilith prominent in her chart as well, in conjunction with Pluto. I'm just looking at, where is it? Lilith at 22 Libra, in conjunction with Pluto and Libra, and her son's at 28. And it's her son is at quincunx with her moon in the 4th. So it's like not a comfortable aspect. But actually that Sun Lilith conjunction, I think means that she has to do Lilith work in this lifetime. And part of that was experiencing that, what was it called? Placenta previa or something like that.
Yeah. Something
very, and they had to literally take the placenta off of the womb because it was attached and it wasn't coming out and it could be very, very dangerous. And in the end, she had further children, but she had surrogates for it. Understandably, if you were to go through that kind of trauma. So it's interesting that she wanted more children, but she rejected the idea of carrying it herself. And it feels like she was doing it on her terms, which also felt very Lilith. I'm not saying that we can all afford surrogates, but sometimes these things can express themselves, and it doesn't have to be in conjunction with the moon, by the way. It can be something to do with transits more than just natal placements.
That's what I'm saying. So it can be also transits or even progressions. Do you use it in progressions or?
I'm much more of a solar arc girl, though I'm really into progressions.
And I've been single. I know.
It's something that I've really explored at great depth. It's something that I want to get into more. Lilith speaks to me, and I always know if I'm on the right path because something will happen and Lilith will appear. I've got this goddess deck. It's in the other room now, this goddess tarot deck. And whenever I've got a big decision to make and I pull out the Lilith card, I'm like, what I want to do is the right thing. And she constantly reveals herself to me. I'm not choosing to work with Lilith. Lilith seems to be choosing to work with me.
Choosing you.
I say thank you to Lilith for that. And I'm always trying to help to interpret her and to connect people with her. But I like to remind people that Lilith doesn't like to be labelled. So trying to put her into a house and a sign can be done, but she's so much more complex than that. And I do actually do that as well. I do sign cookbook style Lilith, and I'm building a course for that, which would be a far better place for us to get into it. And on
this was the introduction. I know we couldn't touch the houses and the signs because it's a lot of information for this short live. But I just wanted to introduce our listeners to what Black Moon Lilith is, and I will encourage everybody who wants to learn more. Actually, Stephanie, I know you probably don't know this, but in every of your Synastry or whenever I listen to you, always mention Lilith. It's just there. I don't know if you do it subconsciously or purposely, but she's always there. So listen to her podcast. Lots of examples, Synastry examples. She talks about Lilith in almost everyone. I swear I listen to a lot of your stuff. You almost everywhere there's Lilith.
You just put a pin up.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I thought you were the perfect person to do this. I want to thank you very much. I know we spent like 45 minutes. It's more than enough for the introduction. I want to thank everybody for joining and you as well for taking the time. And I know with little kids, it's always hard to find, balance between life and personal life and work life.
If anybody would like to just check out what I said about Lilith, I did an actual video about her, but all the Venus stuff I've done on my YouTube channel, which is @Astrology, there is Lilith's leading role, which is a video that I kind of talked just exclusively about that really. But also in the Venus retroscopes, I kind of discussed her there as well, because it's hard not to talk about her during this period. She's just really making herself known.
She's very active. So just, I want us for you guys to pay attention of some breakups or some temptations come into your life that you know why.
Yes. It's naughty horse energy, turning us all into very naughty horses who just want to do it our way, basically.
I have another questions before we go. I'm wondering if that affects women when they have a premature birth to their babies.
Yeah, like I said with Chrissy Teigen having the issue she did, there's a lot of connection with this. And actually on my podcast, I'm speaking to somebody next week. It might be in a few weeks' time. We're actually going to be talking about an asteroid called Juno, which I know you've spoken about her before, and how actually she might be the antithesis of, and so let's not worry about the stuff that Lilith could potentially do when there's another asteroid that could be quite benefic in that respect. So that's in a few weeks' time. I'm going to be talking to somebody about Juno. But yeah, Lilith, yes, I think she could present in premature. And with the medical science that we have these days, lots of children, lots of babies are being born and they're being kept healthy and alive in previous situations where they wouldn't. So, I think modern medicine is defying the odds where maybe Lilith may in the past have had one of those, so sad to think of it this way, but to one of her sacrifices, it's tragic. And it's one of the sides of Lilith that I really don't like, but it is there. It does show up. So
I do honestly believe if we use the Lilith energy in a benefic way, it can empower us to.
Yeah, she's very empowering. Yeah,
right. To stand on and be who we truly want to be and not be submissive or so.
It is to have no fear and to be grounded and to say that there's no issue being a person. It doesn't have to be a female, but she's very, very popular with the ladies. But, standing in your own power and being who you are unapologetically. Don't be embarrassed about who you are. If you're an astrologer who's grown up in a Christian household, or if you're somebody who is living a very different path because they just don't want to do it anybody else's way, that's fine. Don't worry about what other people think.
Now is the time, right?
Yeah.
Now when she's in Leo, the soul Venus retrograde now, it's the courageous time to actually be bold and to be true to yourself. I think it's the perfect timing. That's why I wanted to actually encourage people just to at least re-evaluate everything and use the Lilith power to stand up for themselves.
Yes. This is my first Instagram live. I've never done a live before. So
I just went and I reach out to people and just want to spread the word of astrology. There's many of us that nobody knows about us. Wait to see Lilith as empowering first.
She is. Yeah, that's why the patriarchy doesn't like her. Look at the Barbie movie right now. How many men are getting annoyed about this? There's so much Lilith going on here with that film.
Everything is on Stephanie's YouTube. You can listen about Barbie, you can listen about Lilith. Just go and scroll through her videos. There's many interesting things there. Everybody, have a great rest of the weekend. Use this Lilith energy to empower you. That's my last thought. Thank you.